Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thank you for joining me once again today. Been a while, hasn't it? Hope you all of you in America at least, had a good Thanksgiving break. I know I did. But now I'm back in the saddle, at least somewhat, and we are going to look at another Total War Warhammer 2 replay. Specifically, this is Skaven versus Beastmen. We have not seen Beastmen much, have we? Back in Total War Warhammer 1, they were not considered a high-tier faction. They were okay, but they weren't fantastic. They were just kind of a little too flimsy, and they didn't have much that was special going for them. In Total War Warhammer 2, I think they're quite a bit better. To be honest, I have not played them a whole lot myself. I've played them some, and they're a little bit, well, they're a little bit like the Skaven, to be honest. Now, most Beastmen units are flimsy. They have low armor. They don't have exceptionally high health values. They have decent health values, but nothing special. Their stats are not hugely high, at least in terms of their infantry, like the Skaven. Unlike the Skaven, they have fast and effective kind of medium/light cavalry in the Centaurs, which are very, very fast, have okay stats. The versions with great weapons have a lot of armor-piercing damage, decent charge bonus, and they have perfect vigor as long as their rowdy trait is active, which is active at all times except when their leadership is wavering. Interestingly, I think that means this kicks back in when they're broken, which is a little bit weird. And they also have this primal fury trait, which is basically frenzy for the whole army at all times, pretty much. It's a little bit worse than frenzy, but it applies to every unit so long as they're not below 50% leadership. So it's like frenzy, basically. So they've got the Centaurs, which are very good. They've got Minotaurs. Over here they have Centaurs with throwing axes, which are a skirmish armor-piercing cavalry, which is, missile cavalry, which is nice. They have Minotaurs, and I think he had some Minotaurs, but which are a very high-priced and very powerful monstrous infantry. Lots of weapon damage, lots of armor-piercing, good leadership, and on the shielded version, silver shields, which is a nice little bonus. They also have Blood Greed, which is active anytime they're near an enemy. That gives them immunity to psychology and more leadership, so they'll fight for longer. And then their infantry corps, they have an interesting choice that the Skaven don't have access to, which is they have an armored, armor-piercing heavy infantry, the Brayherd, which has a little bit more HP than most infantry units, and pretty solid stats while Primal Fury is active. 41 melee attack, only 25 defense, but 100 armor, and 40 armor-piercing weapon damage. So these guys, they're not the best heavy infantry in the game by any means, or the most efficient, but they are solid. I believe they were buffed between Warhammer 1 and Warhammer 2, which made them more solid. And I know that the Goreherds were buffed, especially in that the Goreherds got Vanguard deployment, which means you can use these guys to sneak around and ambush in a way that you couldn't before. They can hide in forests, they can Vanguard deploy, all that good stuff. Anyway, so Goreherds are pretty good medium-price infantry. Bestigors are pretty good high-price infantry, and then they have Ungors as well. So, the Beastman player in this match, he has taken a front line of mixed Goreherd with shields and Bestigor herds. Some of his Goreherd have a couple of chevrons. He has a Bray Shaman of the Wild, and his spells, he has the Jagged Dagger, which is just a power increase, not a spell. He's brought Savage Dominion, which lets him spawn a Cygor, and that's it. He's literally only brought this Shaman in order to spawn another Cygor. He's got a standard Beast Lord on foot, decent melee stats, not anything to write home about particularly, and he's brought him just naked, no abilities whatsoever. He's got one Cygor, which is the Beastman artillery piece, does very, very good missile damage. Very good missile damage. Not the most accurate, but like the Lizardmen artillery piece, this can also function as a monster in close combat. Look at that dopey face. Hi, buddy. Not the best monster, but kind of a cut-rate giant and a cut-rate catapult all in one unit, which is not bad. Then, hidden over in the woods is kind of the meat and potatoes of his forces, in the woods and over on that other flank. He has one unit of Minotaurs with shields, which, as I said, are quite strong, and they also cause fear. He's got, up here, a unit of Chaos Warhounds, not the poison kind, interestingly, just the standard kind, so very light, fast cavalry. And he has 2 units of Centaurs with throwing axes, which are an armor-piercing skirmish cavalry. Excellent for wearing down large armored units and for harassing flyers, and they do have that perfect vigor. Then over here in the open, he has 2 units of Centaurs with great weapons, which are a great great light shock cavalry. They're very, very fast, as I said, and with their charge bonus, they can charge in, do a huge amount of damage, and get out quickly. So clearly, his plan is based around holding with this infantry line, shelling me with artillery, and also flanking and harassing with the Centaurs to force me to make the attack, as it were, and to try to get at my vulnerable units. My army, I have a front line of clan rat spears with shields flanking Skaven slave spears, so a cheap meat shield front line. I have 2 units of storm vermin halberds. I've got another clan rat spear over here guarding my warp lightning cannon. 2 storm vermin halberds, 1 poison wind globadier, 1 death globe bombardier. My warlord is on a rat ogre bonebreaker, and I have given him lots of stuff: deadly onslaught, verminous valor, world's edge armor, rally, and the shield of distraction. I have an assassin to guard him, which has trophy heads, concealment bombs, and the rival hide talisman. And I have a plague priest on a plague furnace, which is this very powerful chariot unit. I've given him wither, bless with filth, and pestilent breath, along with the normal abilities: the billowing death, which is the mortis engine effect, and the plague rash. And of course I have 1 of the dreaded warp lightning cannons over here, although this kind of puts me in an interesting position because I will shortly be out-artilleried, because there's 1 Cygor on the field and he can summon more. So, he starts off firing with the Cygor, and the Cygor is just going to lob a giant rock into nothing. The Warp Lightning Cannon starting by shooting at the Centaurs with great weapons, and it's doing some pretty decent damage. That first volley killed off 7 of them and took a significant chunk of HP off of the unit. Now, unfortunately, they're going to start moving too fast for the Warp Lightning Cannon to effectively track them, and that Cygor got a really good hit there, wiped out a bunch of my crew. I'm maneuvering some spear and halberd units over here to deny the flank to the Centaurs with great weapons, and at this time I'm still kind of unsure. I see more cavalry coming over there. I'm like, well, maybe I'll just hold my position, try to whittle them down. Unfortunately, that turns out to be a bad idea, because that Cygor is not giving up. My poison wind globadiers do a little bit of damage, but not much at all. That volley almost entirely missed. Couple more warp lightning shots. I did a little bit more damage, but I'm also taking a pounding from that Cygor. That is the most accurate Cygor I've ever seen, and of course he has now summoned another one, which is disintegrating but not fast enough for my liking. That Cygor has already racked up 33 kills, and my warp lightning cannon is starting to rout. Over here, the Centaurs with great weapons charge into my warlord. That's a poor decision. The warlord is actually pretty well suited to take these guys on, and he got 5 kills with 1 little charge. My warp lightning cannon is now routing, and I brought my rat ogres. Oh, I forgot to mention those. I did bring 2 units of rat ogres. I had them hidden over in the woods on this side. Sorry, forgot to look at them. You know what rat ogres are anyway. Cheap, fairly effective, shock, monstrous infantry / cavalry. They're coming over this way. I don't know why this is happening. I didn't give this order. They were part of a locked group, and locked groups sometimes behave very badly. So, the situation right now is a little bit odd for me. My artillery's been destroyed. My army is kind of scattered thither and yon. Fortunately, I do have defensive units near both of my globadiers, but really, these units should be pushing forward. I should have abandoned the warp lightning cannon and rushed with everything as soon as I realized what was going on. But I'm using the rat ogres and my warlord to zone out the Centaurs with great weapons, keep them from charging into my death globe bombardiers. The halberds are starting to push back forward in order to support the brush here, and my plague priest is going to have to do a lot of the lifting. Over here, I have a unit of Skaven slave spears that is basically just sucking up ammo. It's been chasing these Centaurs with throwing axes away, keeping them zoned out for 125 gold. That's great value. These 2 Cygors have been marching forward into the teeth of my army. That one's now turning around, but that one isn't, so he's going to stomp into the middle of these Skaven slave spears and actually take some damage from them, since he is a low armor large unit and they are non-armor piercing anti-large. He realizes his mistake and starts to pull back immediately. I get a nice little pestilent breath that does some chip damage on these Centaurs. They, meanwhile, are going to run down these Skaven slave spears, but that means the Chaos Warhounds are going to get hit by the Storm Vermin halberds just a little bit. They get clipped. And does that suck them into combat? That does start to suck them into combat, just a little. Meanwhile, the rat ogres over here, I realize that's a bad idea and start pulling them back before they take too much damage from those axes. Up here, the main line of combat has been engaged. You can see I'm getting my cannons back on their artillery pieces. And in the center, I've dropped Bless with Filth on my Skaven Slave Spears, Clan Rat Spears, and Assassin, and the Plague Priest is now coming in to support. Over here I've got some Spearmen into these Bestigors. That's a fight they're going to lose. Dropped a nice little spell from the Plague Priest, did quite a bit of damage to those Gore Herds. And I have some Stormvermin Halberds and Skaven Slave Spears right back there. Over here, my Rat Ogres got caught by the Centaurs with great weapons. They took out one unit with the support of the throwing axes. This unit is doing a respectable job. 9 Centaurs with great weapons in one charge is not bad. And I've got my Halberds and my Warlords still back here trying to keep them away. Unfortunately, they are going to get onto the cannon, but I'm pushing my Globadiers forward, and these Poison Wind Globadiers are now starting to fire into the battle. I took a little bit of a hit from that Cygor there. I'm trying to push them forward enough to get into the Cygor, but we'll see. These Rat Ogres are just ignoring these guys at this point. The Warp Lightning Cannon got a couple of shots off, and at that point I think he realized it was back online, and so swung his cavalry around to take it out for good. The Stormvermin Halberds aren't quite going to get there in time. I have actually won this combat with the support of the Plague Priest. The Plague Priest is just going ham, just recklessly pushing forward, charging into the middle of the enemy army, because I've got to distract them, and this is probably the best unit to do it with, since it is very heavy, very large, and has a big anti-infantry bonus. I'm bringing my Warlord and the surviving Rat Ogres up forward, got these Rat Ogres still back there. The Warp Lightning Cannon gets off one more really good shot, tons of damage there, and it does, the Stormvermin Halberds do manage to block off the charge of the Centaurs with great weapons. So they are doing fantastic and allowing that cannon to get another really good hit. That was really, really nice. But the Warp Lightning Cannon does rout because it did get caught by a few of those Centaurs that snuck past. So the Stormvermin Halberds acquit themselves well, but don't quite manage to support the cannon enough. My Poison Wind Globadiers are now firing into the Cygor, taking a beating and dishing one out at the same time. My Warlord is up here, providing leadership support. My Rat Ogres have attacked the Bray Shaman of the Wild in conjunction with the Assassin, trying to kill him, but not quite doing it because the Bestigors have kind of blocked the Assassin up. Over here, this has turned into a big ol' infantry mosh pit, and they're throwing rocks into it and doing tons and tons of damage. The Bestigors are a fantastic target for the Deathglow Bombardiers. I only wish I'd gotten more than one volley before the Centaurs charged in to stop them from firing. These guys should have been firing at the Cygor. I think they got a little bit confused, and now they're routed, which is a problem. Over here, the Minotaurs, this was very interesting to me. The Minotaurs have charged in against the Plague Priest and my Warlord and one unit of Clan Rat Spears. I do have Bless with Filth active, so they are poisoned, which is hurting them, but also they're just straight up losing. My Warlord is kicking the crap out of a unit of Minotaurs with shields, which I did not expect. When I saw these guys come in from the flank, I thought, oh crap, well, they're dead. Too bad. But no, they're doing very well, actually. Also, these Rat Ogres, despite being locked in melee, are also doing pretty well. Over here, these Bestigors are cleaning out most of my infantry. The Storm Vermin are still going strong, but they are the exception. My Deathglow Bombardiers, thanks to their 100 armor, have stuck it out in melee for quite some time. However, the point-blank throwing axe fire is now breaking them. Over on this side, I've got some Skaven Slave Spears charging in to flank the Minotaurs with shields. My Rat Ogres are pulling out, having taken quite a bit of damage, although they do have 43 kills. And back here, I don't know why he did this. He charged both of his Centaurs into my Storm Vermin with Halberds and let them get another 12, 13 kills, which were unnecessary. He could have just flanked them. My Globadiers are starting to rally. My Rat Ogres are starting to die. But over here, the Plague Priest and the Warlord are really holding it down. They just don't seem killable. They're doing some damage, but mainly they're just not dying. I've got some rallied spears coming in from behind for a sneak attack on the Cygor. I got a nice little flanking volley on these Centaurs with great weapons, but I think routs them for good. That's a nice little rock in my Storm Vermin. Over here, his cavalry are regrouping, getting ready for another charge or something. Certainly getting ready to fire into the Storm Vermin Halberd and ruin their day. My Assassin over here routed and has rallied and is now coming back. These Clan Rat Spears are also starting to rally. The Minotaurs are almost dead. My Warlord, in combination with one cheap unit of spears, has utterly wrecked a unit of Minotaurs, which is pretty impressive work. Up here, these Rat Ogres are desperately trying to kill the Bray Shaman of the Wild, but not having much luck because of the Cygor and the Beast Lord supporting them. My Poison Wind Globadiers rallied and are now routing off again. My infantry keeps rallying, and I keep throwing them back into this mosh pit just to try and keep it in place. I've got my Deathglow Bombardiers back online, but they're not firing. I think because I had them on hold, to keep them from running away whenever anyone got too close to them, which means they're not auto-firing because they're facing the wrong way, which is a shame. My Warlord is now just bullying his Beast Lord. This is a bit of a problem with having an Infantry Lord against a Monster Lord. The Infantry Lord will end up spending a lot of his time not doing anything because he's lying on the ground. My Assassin is also coming back in. My Spears have broken the Bestigor herd, of all things. And the Plague Priest is now trying to take out the Cygor because I cannot have that artillery fire. It's got to stop. I just can't handle it. My Deathglow Bombardiers looked like, in that position, they could have almost accomplished something, but no, they were just facing the wrong way, so you all suck. They're going to turn around, try to get one volley off. Just going to try. Yep, there goes the volley. And okay, does okay damage, but it also attracts the attention of the Centaurs with great weapons, and so they're about to have a terrible, terrible day. This Cygor is still disintegrating, but not dead yet, and my Plague Priest is just kind of sitting there for the moment. I'm still bullying his leadership, so at this point, if we look at the battle, it doesn't look like I have much left. My Globadiers are routing off, I've got a few halberds there. My Assassin is actually chasing away the Centaurs with throwing axes, which were on skirmish mode, so he can just run them off the field. But I've still got the Plague Priest at over half health, and I've still got my Warlord at almost full health. His infantry is quite badly beaten up, as is mine. He has more of it, but I still have two very powerful melee heroes. His Cygor is almost dead. That Cygor is almost dead and routing. I've got some spears coming back in, more spears already in combat, and just a few rat ogres. So at this point, I'm actually not feeling too bad about this, mainly because my heroes are still at very, very close to full strength, and my Plague Priest still has Pestilent Breath as a mount ability, although I am almost out of magic for the spell version. See, there it goes again. I just dropped it to put a little bit of morale hurt on that gore hurt. The Beast Lord is just running away at this point. He knows he can't fight my Warlord, so he's trying to get him away. The Centaurs with great weapons are going to come in, but the Warlord is not a terribly high armor unit. Doesn't really rely on armor, so great weapons are not the best choice to fight him. Now, all the infantry is going to just mob up around the Plague Priest and the Warlord and try to bring them down. And they're going to have a really tough time. Partially because I'm going to bring my Storm Vermin Halberds in behind them, which is always nice to have that kind of support. Yeah, back here we've got some Centaurs starting to come back in. These units are just routing. They're not coming back. They've taken too much damage. But these spears are going to prove crucial. I have one unit of Clan Rats has just rallied, and I have one unit of Skaven Slaves, and I see these Chaos Warhounds coming in, and I go, uh-oh, I've got to keep them from running a rear charge, because right now I'm routing everything in this combat. The Plague Priest and the Warlord, in combination with the fear they cause and the magic they can drop, they're just routing everything off, so I've got to keep these Chaos Warhounds away. So my spears are starting to come in towards the fight, then I go, uh-oh, I see those Warhounds coming, I've got to block them up. If they run a rear charge, they could ruin everything. So my Skaven Slave Spears get into the Chaos Warhounds, scare them away, because Chaos Warhounds are pretty crap, really. They're going to come try and circle around, and I'm going to get the Clan Rat Spears in their way as well. My Storm Vermin Halberds have finally broken, but my Warlord just keeps beating up that Beast Lord. He can't get any good hits in. I saw his Cygor rallied, so I sent the Plague Priest over to deal with that situation, because I can't have that. So, at this point, all I have left is heroes, basically. I have a couple of crap spears, and I have heroes. I've got my Assassin back, who's dropped his concealment bombs, so he can't be seen. I've got my spears trying to hold the light cavalry away, and I've got my heroes bullying his heroes and his heavy units. And my only hope, look at that. They just ran straight through. They literally didn't even slow down. That's bull. That's crap. I don't like that. Anyway, regardless. The Plague Priest, at this point, there isn't anything on the field that can seriously threaten the Plague Priest. And there's also not much on the field that can seriously threaten the Warlord. The Beast Lord is really the only thing. And unfortunately, at this point, army losses kick in. Since I still have my heroes and he didn't. His Bray Shaman had already routed off the field. His Cygors was routing. The only thing he had left was the Beast Lord. And as soon as the Beast Lord took enough damage, everything shattered. But that was a very, very close match. I like the way my opponent, FPS Kyle here, played the Beastmen. He forced me to do what I didn't want to do, which was to spread my army out, to scatter across the field in an effort to get to grips with him, as opposed to being able to fight the kind of battle that that I wanted to fight. Now, if I had brought more artillery, the situation might have been different, because if I had brought 2 warp lightning cannons, I could have probably ignored his Centaurs except to zone them out with cheap spears, focused the warp lightning cannons on the Cygors, and just straight up won the artillery duel. So I think this kind of build is risky against the Skaven and the Dwarves and other artillery-heavy factions, because you run the risk of that happening, because Cygors are warp lightning fodder. Arguably, I should have just aimed at the Cygor right at the start, started putting herd on it, in order to limit the damage it could do, but I was more concerned with the cavalry because I have a very healthy respect for the damage that Centaurs can cause. If you look at the kills here, you can see all of his infantry did very, very respectably. Well, most of it. 79, 119, 142. Those are very respectable numbers, even against Skaven. My Skaven slaves did okay. My clan rats did okay. The Storm Vermin Halberds did great. They did exactly what I needed them to do, which was, at crucial times, they provided armor piercing in the front line, and, more importantly, they fended off the cavalry. No cavalry unit, especially not a light one like Centaurs, can charge into Storm Vermin Halberds and live. There isn't any cavalry unit in the game, I don't believe, that can accomplish that. So, the Storm Vermin Halberds really accomplished what I needed, which was zone control. The Rat Ogres also did a good job. One of the Rat Ogres got kind of pinned and crushed by all the cavalry, and that was basically my mismanagement at work. The other one did quite respectably in the infantry fight, took out a bunch of Bestigors, as well as doing a little bit of damage to the cavalry. The Globadiers, on the other hand, didn't do very well, the Globadiers and the Bombardiers. Now, that was mainly due to my mismanagement. I wasn't able to keep my army together, and I wasn't able to protect them effectively. In the hands of someone who could manage that in the face of this kind of army, they could have been very, very effective, because these Cygors are great at eating poison wind globes, and all of this heavy infantry, and, you know, this better infantry than mine, could probably have benefited from a couple of volleys of death globes. I feel like they would have liked that. I certainly would have liked it. But in my army, the heroes of the hour were definitely the Warlord and the Plague Priest. The Plague Priest is so solid. It's extremely solid. Unless the enemy has brought specifically armor-piercing anti-large units, the Plague Priest on the Plague Furnace is incredibly difficult to kill. With that 100 armor, the various high, reasonably good stats that it has, the high damage, the bonus versus infantry, and the Mortis Engine effect, a Plague Priest on the Plague Furnace is incredibly dangerous and has to be focused down. And this army just didn't have really any tools with which to focus it down. The Shaman might have been able to use some magic that could have helped, but the Shaman had only brought the Cygor summoning spell. Call of the whatever it is, I forget the name. It's the one that summons Cygors. That's all you need to know. The Warlord, similarly, is a tough target to take down because while he's a large unit, he's relatively small for large single-ended units, and relatively fast, and has abilities to increase his speed and let him get out of combat effectively. Plus, of course, he has the charge bonus, and he has the charge bonus enhancing skill he can pop, and all that stuff. So, basically, the Warlord can kind of careen around the battlefield bullying smaller units, and there's not much that can be done about it. Unless, once again, you've brought armor-piercing anti-large units like cavalry. You know, against the Dark Elves, this Warlord is a terrible idea. But against the Beastmen, especially the Beastmen at this time before they have their regiments of renown, I think he's a pretty solid pick. So anyway, thank you all so much for watching. I'll be getting back into the swing of doing videos fairly regularly. I will be starting a couple of different things. I plan to continue Fantasy General, and I may also start another playthrough of Alpha Centauri, which I did quite a ways back, more specifically the Alien Crossfire expansion, which a few people have been asking for a while now. But in any case, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.